vehicle and making sure it's sitting level. If it wasn't sitting level, there'd be a problem. A flat tire, suspension problem, shock, or airbag. I'm checking under the bus to make sure there's no leaks coming from the transmission, motor oil, power steering, or antifreeze. I'm looking to the left and the right of the vehicle, making sure there's no obstructions in the way. I'm walking to the side of the vehicle. I'm going to check the driver's side window to make sure it's clean and clear, not broken, cracked, and no illegal stickers. The mirror is tight and secure, not broken or cracked. The mirror arm is tight and secure and no missing bolts. I'm checking the clearance lights to make sure they're tight and secure, not broken, cracked. Amber in the front, red in the back. The front windshield is tight and secure, not broken or cracked, and no legal stickers. The wiper blade is tight against the window, not broken, cracked, and mounted properly. The windshield wiper arm is tight and secure and no missing bolts. I'm releasing this side of the bus. Turn signal, tight and secure, no missing screws, not broken or cracked. This mirror bracket is tight and secure, no missing bolts, mounted properly. And the mirror is tight and secure, not broken or cracked. This signal light is tight and secure and not broken or cracked or missing screws. The front headlights are tight and secure, clean and clear, and no missing screws. The tag is mounted against the bumper, tight and secure, no missing bolts. On this side of the bus, I'm going to check the mirror bracket, windshield, wiper blade, wiper arm, turn signal, mirror arm, mirror, light, and headlights, just like I did on the other side. I'm opening the hood to make sure that it's not leaning too far forward or too far back. Pushing down on the yellow thing to hold it in. I'm going left to right. This is the power steering reservoir. Tight and secure, no leaks. I would check it with this dipstick, pull it out, wipe it off, put it back in, pull it out, and make sure it has enough fluid. I'm checking the wires on the side, making sure it's tight and secure, not cracked or broken or missing wires. I'm checking the hose, clamp, and coupling, making sure they're tight and secure and not leaking. The AC compressor is mounted properly and no leaks and no missing bolts. The belt is tight and secure and not broken, cracked, or frayed, and when pulled by hand, it shouldn't move any more than 3/4 of an inch. Radiator hose and clamp is tight and secure, no leaks. The radiator is mounted properly, no missing bolts, and mounted properly and no leaks. The fan blades are tight and secure, not cracked, broken, or missing blades. This hose and coupling is tight. Hose and clamp is tight and secure and not leaking. The oil dipstick is tight and secure, and the way you check it is to pull it out, wipe it off, put it back in, and pull it out and make sure it had enough fluid. That's the transmission dipstick. I would check it the same as I do the oil, but only with the engine running and in neutral. That's the oil cap. Tight and secure, you add the oil, no leaks. Hoses and couplings are tight and secure for the air compressor, no leaks. The air compressor is mounted properly, no missing bolts, no leaks, and the air compressor and power steering are gear driven. That's the steering rod, tight, mounted properly and not broken or bent. Steering box is tight and secure, no missing bolts and no leaks. The pitman arm is tight and secure, not bent or broken. The nut and carter pin is tight and secure, not missing. The drag link is tight and secure and not broken or bent. The knuckle, nut, and carter pin are mounted properly and not missing. And this tie rod is tight and secure and not missing. I'm checking the frame, making sure the frame is not broken, cracked, or missing any bolts, and no illegal welds. The leaf spring hanger is tight and secure against the frame and holding the springs up, no missing bolts. The leaf spring is not broken, cracked, or shifted. The U-bolt is holding the springs together, not missing. The shock absorber is tight and secure and mounted properly and no leaks. The hose and coupling for the brakes are tight and secure and no leaks. The brake chamber is tight and secure and no leaks. The slack adjuster is mounted properly and no missing parts. The angle between the push rod and adjuster arm is a little more than 90 degrees where the brake's released and less than 90 degrees where the brake's applied. And when pulled by hand, the push rod should not move more than 1 inch where the brake's released. I'm checking the top of the tire. Evenly worn. No less than 4/32 of tread depth. No recaps on the front and no mixed radial or bias tires on the front. Sidewall, no cuts, no bubbles, no illegal patches. Bead is tight and secure, not bent or dent, and no leaks. Rim is mounted properly with no illegal welds. Lug nuts are all present. No rust, no shiny spots indicating they may be loose. Oil hub is tight and secure and no leaks. Brake drum is mounted properly, tight and secure, and no illegal welds. If I could see the brake liner, I'd make sure it wasn't worn excessively thin. Valve stem is tight and secure with a cap on tight and no leaks. If I had a mallet, I'd strike the tire. If it bounced back, that means I have enough air. If it sticks, that means I have to add air, and I'd add it to the valve stem or check it with a air gauge. Mud flap mounted properly, not rubbing the ground or rubbing the tire. Now we're going to the other side of the bus. This is a radiator reservoir. I check to make sure it's not leaking. I make sure it's mounted properly. I make sure the cap was on tight, and I would only remove the cap if the engine was cool. Hoses and clamps are tight and secure, no leaks. Windshield wiper reservoir is not leaking, mounted properly, and the cap's on tight. Air filter box is mounted properly, tight and secure. And it has a sight glass to indicate whether the filter is clean or dirty. The alternator is mounted properly and no missing bolts, and the wires are tight and secure against the frame. Alternator belt is tight and secure, not broken, cracked, or frayed, and when pulled by hand, it shouldn't move any more than 3/4 of an inch. The water pump is mounted properly and no leaks. I'll check all these hoses and clamps like I did the other side. I'll check the frame, suspension, the brakes, the tire, the rim, and mud flap like I did on the other side. I'll check this light to make sure it's mounted properly and no missing screws. I'll check the door to make sure there's not broken or cracked, and no illegal stickers. I'm going to open the door, open and close the door to make sure that it's not binding and it opens and closes properly. I'm checking the door light to make sure it's mounted properly and no missing screws. This turn signal is tight and secure, no missing screws. I'll check all the windows on this side to make sure they're not broken or cracked and no illegal stickers. I'm looking under the bus to make sure I'm checking the exhaust system and the drive shaft, making sure they're tight and secure and mounted properly. Behind the back tire, I'll check the frame, mounted properly, tight and secure, no illegal welds. I'll check the leaf spring hangers, mounted against the frame, no missing bolts. The leaf springs are mounted tight and secure and not broken, cracked, or shifted. And the U-bolt is holding the springs together tight and secure. The shock absorber is tight and secure, not broken or bent, and no leaks. If this bus had an airbag and torsion bar, I'd make sure the airbag was not leaking and the torsion bar is holding the airbag up tight. Now I'm going to check the brake assembly. Brake hose and coupling are tight and secure and no leaks. The brake chamber is mounted properly and no leaks. The slack adjuster on the back is tight and secure and not missing any parts, and the angle between the push rod and adjuster arm is a little more than 90 degrees where the brake's released and less than 90 degrees where the brake's applied, and when pulled by hand the push rod should not move more than 1 inch where the brake's released. I'm checking the top of the tire on the back, evenly worn, no less than 2/30 seconds. The sidewall, no cuts, no bubbles, no illegal patches. The bead on the back is tight and secure, not bent or dented, and no leaks. The rim is mounted properly and no illegal welds. The lug nuts are all present and no rust or shiny spots indicating they may be loose. This is the axle hub. The axle hub is tight and secure, no missing bolts, and no leaks. The valve stem is mounted properly, tight and secure, and no leaks. If I could see the brake drum, I'd check the brake drum to make sure it was mounted properly and no illegal welds. And the brake liner is not worn excessively thin if I could see it. With a mallet, I whack the tires. If it bounces back, that means I have enough air. If it sticks, that means I have to add air, add it to the valve stem. This bus has bunt rims. I'd look between the tires to make sure that there are no debris like rocks, twigs, or branches. Mud flap, not rubbing the ground or rubbing the tire. Fuel door opens without binding. The cap is on tight, no leaks. The hoses, clamps, and couplings are tight and secure. I'm looking under the bus to make sure there's no leaks coming from the fuel tank. I'm checking this reflector, tight and secure. I'm checking this light, mounted properly, tight and secure, no missing screws. I'm checking the caution clearance lights, making sure they're tight and secure, not cracked or broken, and no missing screws. I'm checking all the windows to make sure they're tight and secure and no illegal stickers. I'll check the reverse light, brake light, turn signal, reflector, and tag light, and make sure they're all tight, secure, no missing screws, not broken or cracked. I'll open this door from the inside. I'm checking the turn signal, brake light, reverse light, reflector, and tag, just like I check on that side. I'm checking the tag to make sure it's no missing bolts and it's up to date. I'm checking the exhaust to make sure there's no excessive carbon or soot coming from the exhaust. Just like the other side, I'll check all the reflectors, all the lights, and all the glass like I did on the other side. Just like the other side, I'll check the frame, the suspension, the brakes, the tire, the rim, and the mud flap like I did on the other side. Brake assembly. Battery box. I'll open the door and it's not binding. The battery hold downs and cables are tight and secure, and the battery hold down is tight and secure, and no excessive corrosion. I'm shutting down the hood. Alright, now I'm checking the inside. I'm making sure that the steps are clean and clear and nothing can trip my passenger. I'm checking this door light to make sure it's mounted properly. I'm checking these door handles, handrails, to make sure that they're tight and secure, no missing bolts or screws. I turn the key on. I'm checking these handrails to make sure they're tight and secure, no missing bolts or screws. I'm checking the first seat on the right to make sure that the cushions are tight against the frame and the frame is tight against the floor, no missing bolts. I'm checking the overhead handrails and make sure they're tight and secure. I'm checking the emergency exit. The proper way to do it is to push it up, pull it down. I'm checking the emergency exit window. The proper way is to pull down the handle, push it out, pull it back, and push the handle back up. I'm walking to the back of the bus. I'll make sure that the back door opens and closes with the alarm going off. I'm turning around. I'm going to check all the seats and all the seat belts like the one in the front. I'm going to check all the emergency exits like the one in the front. I'm going to check this overhead like I checked in the front. I'm checking the aisle to make sure that the aisle is clean and clear and nothing can trip my passengers. Walking to the front of the bus, I'm going to check the standing line to make sure it's at least 2 inches wide and visible to the passengers. I have 4 emergency equipment. First aid kit is mounted on the dash. Warning device, which is the triangles, 3 reflective triangles, are mounted behind that door. I have a fire extinguisher mounted behind the seat, which is fully charged. It's a BC fire extinguisher. And I'd have extra fuses. If this bus has circuit breakers, I'd have extra fuses if I needed them. I'm checking this seat to make sure it's mounted properly, tight and secure. Checking the seat belt to make sure it works properly. Now I'm going to look left to right, eye level, to make sure. Checking the window on the left to make sure it opens and closes properly. I'm checking the mirrors on the left to make sure that they're adjusted to me. The front windshield is clean and clear. The mirrors on the right are adjusted to me. The overhead mirror is adjusted so I can see the passengers and the passengers can see me. At this point, we'll start the bus. Now I'm going left to right, knee level. I'm checking the interior lights to make sure they all work properly. I'm checking the door to make sure it opens and closes properly. I'm checking the heat and defrost to make sure that the heat and defrost is working right. Now I'm going to check the left and right turn signal and the fluid to make sure they're working properly. Now I'm bringing my hand up to the gauges. I'm checking the temperature gauge to make sure it's rising to the proper level. The front and rear air gauges are rising to the proper level, which is between 100 and 120 psi. The volt gauge tells me that the alternator is charging the battery. The fuel gauge is rising to the proper level. I'm sorry, the oil gauge is rising to the proper level, and the fuel gauge tells me that we have enough fuel for the trip. The amp gauge tells me we have enough, is rising to the proper level. At this point, I'm turning on the headlights. I'm checking the lights on the dash. High beams are working on the dash. Right turn signal's working on the dash. Left turn signal's working on the dash. Four-way flashers are working properly on the dash. Bringing my hands up. Now I'm going to check the steering. Make sure that there's no more than 2 inches or 10 degrees of play before the front wheel starts to turn. Checking the horn. Checking the air horn. Alright, now I'm going to do the brake test. First thing I'm going to do is check the brakes to make sure they're holding. First I'm going to check the parking brake to make sure it's holding. The parking brake is on. I'm going to put it in drive. Tap the fuel pedal. Put it in reverse. Tap the pedal, hold it. Back to neutral. Now I'm going to check the foot brake. Put my foot on the brake, push in the parking brake. Put it in drive. Hold it. Reverse. Hold it. Back to neutral. Okay. Now I'm going to do an air brake test. I'd like to remind you that the wheel is chalk. and the air pressure is between 100 and 120 psi. I'm going to turn the key off. I'm going to turn the key to the on position. I'm going to push in the parking brake, step on the foot brake, and hold it down for 1 minute to make sure I don't lose any more than 3 psi's in 1 minute. Off, on, push, step. Will you time me, please? After the minute's up, I'm going to start fanning the brakes. As the air pressure drops below 60 psi, the warning light and buzzer will come on. As I continue to fan the brakes, between 40 and 20, the parking brake will pop out. Alright, we'll just say that the minute's up, but you have to hold it down for a whole minute. Alright, I'm fanning. Air pressure's dropping. Lights came on. Parking brake popped out. Now I'm going to start the bus back up and let the air pressure build back up again. When it gets above 60, the warning lights will go out. That's the vice solder button. Sitting here, scan across the dash and make sure you got everything. If you forgot something, you can go back and do it. Oh, did I mind the heat and defrost is working properly? Or whatever you forgot, you can then tell them, because their order isn't like exactly like our order. Alright, the lights went out on the... Now I'm waiting for it to get between 100 and 120 psi at the proper level. Okay, you heard that noise go off? That's the end of my air brake test. Will you assist me in an exterior light test? And what they'll do is signal you. Left turn signal, right turn signal, four-way flashers, headlights, high beams. Then they'll go to the back. Left turn signal, right turn signal, four ways, brakes, reverse. Then they'll come to the door and they'll stand there until 45 minutes is up, or you tell them that's the end of my pre-trip. that's the end of my pre-trip.